We now go into the proper introductions to Java. Most material are taken from this website. Here are the stages of working with Java. First, you write your program with an editor to get the source code. Then, you compile your code with a compiler to produce executable bytecodes to run on Java virtual machine. But if there is error, you need to amend your source code and recompile again. Once you get no compilation error and you do get the executable bytecode, you can then execute it. At runtime, you may find runtime error or other logic error that you may need to go back to edit your source code and then repeat the cycle. To write a Java program, you can use any text editor. Note that one file usually contains only one class. The source codes must have a .java extension, for example, hello.java. To compile, you use javac, the source file. The output binary is with .class extension, like hello.class. To execute this hello.class Java bytecode, we put java hello. The whole program lifecycle can actually be in one integrated development environment, such as Dr. Java that I used in the previous video. It provides windows to do editing, and there is menu to compile and to run. Here is the usual structure of a Java program that we follow. First is the line on import, just like in Python, to bring in the necessary library for use in your program. Then there's the keyword to define the whole class, public class, and commands are usually // for that line or a block with a /* and end with */. And then the main function public static void, and there could be other methods done in a similar manner as in the public static void. We take a closer look at defining a function. Here are two examples, good enough for our purpose. There are many more options to explore when you study Java in detail. First, public versus private. This is a so-called access modifier. So public means that it can be accessed from outside of a class. Private means that it can only be accessed within the class. Then static, you saw this. Static means that there is only one single copy of the function for all instances, so you can just use it within a class without having to first create an object for the class. Then the return type of a function, here it's a float, here it's a void. Void means that there's nothing to return. Float means that it returns a floating point number. With this float, then it is compulsory to return a value that is a float. This will be checked by the compiler that there is a return of a value matches with the float. Next is the method name. Here is exponent, here it's MMM. Then followed by the list of parameters, and the list of parameters are passed by values in Java, followed by the method body, which are all the executable statements. The public static void main is a special routine. When the program is run, the special method main is found and the execution of the program begins here. The string argument can be passed to the main method as an array of strings. About IDE, this link will bring you to the popular Eclipse IDE, or you can refer to this link to see other IDE such as the Dr. Java that I use. In case you want to experience with Unix, which is a popular OS, you may also apply for an Unix account at my SOC, and then you can do your Java programming without the support of an IDE. Here are the Java primitive data types: character, byte, short, integer, long. Long is a longer version of integer. Float, double. Double is a longer version of float. And boolean. Here are the arithmetic operations. In the evaluation of numeric expression, we have to determine the grouping with precedence. Here is the lowest precedence to higher precedence. We use associativity to differentiate operators of the same precedence. And data type conversion is performed for operands with different data types. Here is how the conversion being carried out. When operands of an operation have different types, if one of the operands is double, you convert the other to double. Else if one is float, convert the other to float. Else if one is long, convert the other to long. Else convert both into integer. When value is assigned to a variable of different type, there are two cases: widening, which is the promotion, or narrowing, which is a demotion. So when the value is of a smaller range compared to the variable, then the conversion is done automatically. On the other hand, when the value has a larger range compared to the variable, then explicit typecasting must be done to narrow the value. Here are two examples. For the case of promotion, we have d is a double, I is an integer. When I equal to 12, I divided by 10, which is an integer divided by integer, so it gives an integer which is a 1 rather than a 1.2. So the result is the promotion of 1 to d as a double to get you 1.0. For the case of demotions, d is a double, d equal to 1.2. When you take explicit typecast of d into an integer, you truncate the 0.2 to result in only a 1 for I. Here are the relational operators, same as what you already know from Python. Here are the logical operators, a and b, n is written as n%, a or b with a vertical bar, a exclusive of b with a cap, and not a. Here is the if-else statements. If something, print this, else if something, print this, else print this. So it's checking the time. If the time is less than 10 o'clock, it's good morning. If the time is less than 20, it's good day, else it's good evening. Here's another way to write if-else statement. Is the time less than 18? If yes, then good day, else good evening. And this is assigned to the result, to print out the result. Here's a neat way to use switch in place of if-else if statements. Switch with the character. If the character is a, you print out this and you break, get out of the switch statement. Else, if the character is a b, you print this and you break, get out of the switch statements, and so on. For this example, the grade is indeed a b, so this is not true and this is true. So this is printed out, you are grade B employee and the bonus is equal to 1000. And then you break, get out of the switch. Here is the while statement to repeat a body of statements as long as the condition here is true. For our example, var starts with 1 and it's incremented by 1 at the end of each loop, and the print statement is to print the loop count with the var number. So the print statement is carried out until var reaches 11. At that time 11 is no longer less than 11, which is the limit. It will then quit the while loop. So the print statement is done 10 times in total. So this is the while, checking of the condition. If the condition is true, you will execute the body of the while loop. Here is another way to do while. It is to do the body followed by the checking. So this form of while loop, do while, actually execute the body at least once. Whereas this while does not necessarily execute the body if the condition is failed at the very beginning. Java for loop is written in this manner. There are three parts. The first part is a control variable. In this case, I. You specify that this is an integer I with initial value 0. Then followed by semicolon to delimit the first part. Then the second part, which is the condition checking. As long as the condition is true, the loop will be executed. So this condition is checked at the very beginning. So in this case, as long as I is less than 10, the body of the loop will be executed. Then followed by another semicolon to delimit the second part, followed by the last part, which is the incrementing of the control variable. This is done at the very end of the loop statements. Here is a simple example of the for loop. As you can notice, the indentation is not there at all, but Java compiler doesn't care as long as the pairing of the parentheses is correct. So we have public class for loop divisible by 7. So this class adds this whole body with the pair of parentheses here, and this body has only a single method, which is the public static void main. So this is where the Java execution will start. And inside this method, there it's a for loop, and this is the method body with the for loop. Here is the for loop with a single if statement, and then the if body has two statements. So what does this program do? So it has the for loop to start with I equal to 100. As long as I is greater than 0, it executes the for body. In this case, it checks that whether the value I is divisible by 7. If yes, it prints the I value. If not, it does nothing. And then in the next round, it decrements I by 1, and so on. So the whole program is to start with 100 and then 99 and so on until 1. And each time it checks that if a value is divisible by 7, it gets it printed out. Here are the additional control we have in a for loop with break and continue. Break is to break away from the for loop completely. That is, when the system encounters break, you will jump out of the for loop, in this case, this block. Whereas the continue will continue to the next round of the for loop. So it actually moves to the end of the last statement and then it does the increment and check for the condition. With all the above slides, we are now ready to try out some Java programs. Let's do a reversal of an array, which is a kind of tuple as you know from Python. Here is our iterative solution number 1. For the input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the output is to be 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This part is the main code. For the array u initialized to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we can find its length, which is 7. We can then do a loop to exchange the first with the last, the second with the second last, the third with the third last, and so on. So this is a for loop with the position I equal to 0 until I is halfway, and each time increment I by 1. And here are the 3 statements needed to exchange 2 values. This is unlike the case of Python where you can write a simple statement to exchange 2 values. Here we need to have the ith value is to be stored in a temporary variable, and then the I last value is being assigned to the ith value. Then the value of I previously stored in the temp can now go into the last ith value. And this part is to print out all the numbers, which is what you see here, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is our iterative solution number 2. We abstract out the print array part and the reverse array part. Then from the main program, public static void main, which is where the Java virtual machine will start the execution to call these 2 functions. Because both of these functions are public static, we do not need to new an object to use these functions, like in the case that you saw with the exponent. So here we simply call reverse array, passing in the array t, and to get it reversed, then we print out the new t. Here is our iterative solution number 3. This is basically the same as number 2, except that in the for loop, I ranges until before size, and while I is already halfway, it breaks. This is just an illustration of a break statement. This is not really a clean and preferred method, since these conditions of checking or breaking can already be built in here directly. Here's our recursive solution for the reverse. Again, we have the print function. Then we have the reversing of the array done with 2 functions. Reverse array is the main function to be called with an array to be reversed. This is done from here. And reverse r is the helper functions of reverse array. It has many more parameters. Besides the array, it has the position I and position j. In the routine, it is to swap the content of the I positions with the j positions. After the swap of this I and j, it then calls itself recursively by incrementing I and decrementing j. Initially, when the reverse array calls the reverse, it starts with I equal to 0 and j equal to the length minus 1, which is the last element. So here it's the main routine, which is the same as that in the iterative solutions. In the reverse example, we saw array, which is something like tuple or list in Python. Array appears often in computation. Again, array in Java start with index 0. So when you print this cast 0, you actually output Volvo, which is the first element. And index 1 is BMW, index 2 is Ford, and index 3 is Mazda. We can actually assign a string to an array. So array is not like tuple, which is immutable. So when you now print out cast 0, you get Opel rather than Volvo. Array has a length you saw, so the length of this array cast is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can then use this length to print out all the elements in the cast. Another shorthand to do this is to do for string I colon cast to print each of these string I. You have just seen 1D array, which is a singleton numbers or strings, and we can have array of array. So this is like tuple within tuple or list within list, and so this is called the multi-dimensional array. So with this 2-dimensional array, to refer to an element, we use 2 indices. In this case, 1, which is a second list here, and 2, which is the third items, which is 7. So when you print out X, you get 7. And then because of multi-dimensional, instead of a for loop, now you need to use double for loop for 2-dimensional array. triple for loop for 3-dimensional array, and so on. To finish up this video, we'll take a look at some useful classes. Scanner class, which is for the input. To use it, you need to import java.utility.scanner. And scanner is a variable and some initialization to know where to get the input from. And then you can then get the next integer or the next double and so on. Here is an example. This is a program to convert the temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius. You have this import java.utility.scanner to use the scanner class. And scanner with the variable name myScanner is a new an object from the scanner, and this is initialized with sys.in, which is the keyboard input. And you print out the message to enter the temperature in Fahrenheit, and then you use myScanner dot next double is to read in the value entered, then do the conversion and print out the Celsius of this Fahrenheit input. For output, we have the printf. It has the percentage signs to indicate the type of the output, and then it has the number W to means the width, and P the number of decimal points to output. Here's an example to compute approximation of a pi, and a pi is output as percentage dot 6 decimal point floating point number. Here are some examples of string class. You can refer to this web page for more details. Text is a string ABC until Z. Length is a method that you can call to find out the length of a string. You can also convert hello world to all uppercase to be like this, or to all lowercase to looks like this. You can also find out the index of a particular string. In this case, locate, which is at position number 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So locate starts at position 7. You can also concatenate two strings. So first name, space, last name. Here are some special character of string. Backslash quote means this, backslash double quote means this, double slash means a slash. So when you say the text double slash, it's called backslash. So you're actually printing out the slash. There are a few other escape sequences like this that you can find out yourself. New line, carriage return, tab, backspace, form feed. And you can take two strings, add them together to be a new string. X is 10, Y is 20, so Z is equal to X plus Y is 1020. If you try to add a string 10 with an integer 20, you actually can get 1020 still, because 20 is converted into a string. So we come to the end of this lecture. You have just learned a new language within an hour, and you have to convince yourself that you can reproduce all those codes that you have learned in Python to Java. And for exercise, you can try writing Java code for factorial and Java code for exponent.